All right, let's hope that the sound is actually working now because I just recorded the Whose Doorknob is the Dirtiest videos, which I only had one opportunity to do and realized that there's no sound. It's okay. You guys will be able to figure out what to do. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about macromolecules, and I want you to start by thinking about this question. Put the following terms in order from smallest to biggest. We have elements, molecules, and macromolecules. So I encourage you to pause the video here, write it down, think about it. Which one is the smallest? Which one is the biggest? All right, so hopefully you have paused and thought about this. The funny thing is that the answer is there. Elements are the smallest. Those would be things you find on the periodic table. Then comes molecules, which are made up of elements, like water would be an example of a molecule. And then we have macromolecules. Macro literally means big, right? So these are big molecules. These are molecules that are made up of more than two elements in this case. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 types of macromolecules. I'm going to show you a cheat sheet that I have made for you that you can print out or you can copy into your notes to help you remember the macromolecules. And we're going to be doing some practice questions. We're also going to identify the building blocks and the elements involved in creating these macromolecules. And these 4 macromolecules are super vital to life. They're very important for your body, and we will be talking about all 4 of them in greater detail throughout the year. So the first thing that you want to know is that there are 4 major large macromolecules found in your body. They are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Again, as I make these videos, I encourage you to pause and write these things down in your notes, or if you already have notes on this topic, go back and make sure you have this. Carbohydrates are the first type of macromolecule that we're going to talk about. These are, the same kind of carbohydrates that you eat, right? They are composed of the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and they're made of sugars. Sugars are the building blocks for a carbohydrate. Sugars are also carbohydrates, right? So the building block itself can be a carbohydrate. Examples here would be glucose and fructose. So glucose is table sugar. It's the most common sugar. It's very necessary for your body. We will talk about that more. Fructose is actually a sugar found in fruit, right? And there are many other types of sugars. When these sugars are put together and built up, they can create different types of molecules, which we'll talk about in a second. Lipids. They're also made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, right? But the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are oriented in a different way. The building block for a lipid is a fatty acid. That's what it's called, right? And fatty acids are actually these sort of chains here. There's different kinds. There's saturated and unsaturated, where unsaturated fatty acids have a double bond, which actually makes them a little harder to break down. And saturated fats here have all single bonds, but every single element here is a carbon, a hydrogen, or an oxygen. Proteins are much more complex. They're made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and they sometimes have sulfur. The building blocks for proteins are amino acids. This is a 3D rendering of a protein, right, that's computer generated, showing all of the multiple complexities in a protein. There's different types of folding. There's different way that these elements are put together to make a protein. And proteins go through 4 stages of folding in order to get their very specific shape, right? And their shape is very important to how they function. Nucleic acids are made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and the building block of a nucleic acid is a nucleotide, right? So nucleotides we will talk about. There are 4 of them. You may have already heard of them: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Right? There are these letters here in between a molecule of DNA. But DNA also has a phosphorus and sugar backbone, right, which would be these purple lines here. So there are other elements in DNA other than just the nucleotides. Macromolecules chart. So thankfully for you, I made this awesome chart, which I'm going to upload into Module 2 here. It tells you the macromolecule. I put a picture of what that macromolecule looks like, or could look like. The elements that macromolecule is made of, the building blocks that make up that macromolecule, and then examples, right? Examples are going to be super important here. So starch is many sugars put together, right? That's made of glucose usually. It could also be made of other sugars. Polysaccharides, you might see that word, that means big sugars. Cellulose, also known as the cell wall in a plant, right? We can't digest that. That's made of glucose, but the way the glucose is built is different than the way glucose is built for a starch, and therefore we actually can't break apart those bonds, right? Cellulose passes straight through you. It's known as fiber, right? It helps you poop. Chitin or chitin, there's multiple pronunciations of this that you may hear. This is the exoskeleton of insects. Think about how strong that is, right? The exoskeleton of an insect is incredibly strong, right? You can crush it, but it's still pretty strong. Think about a cockroach, right? That's made of sugar. Again, we can't digest that because of the way the bonds are made, and that helps make it stronger. Lipids. Examples of lipids, we have steroids, right? These could be like cholesterol. You've probably heard of cholesterol in your body, or testosterone, right? Those are both steroids. Lipids, just generally, we have oils and fats that are made up of these things, right? And then waxes are also a type of lipid, such as the wax you find in your ear. Nucleic acids, right? We have our CHOMP. They're made of nucleotides. Here's a picture. This is actually of just RNA because it's only one side. But DNA and RNA are the most prominent examples of nucleic acids. Super important for the body. We will talk about them in excruciating detail. Proteins, right? Another complicated looking protein here. They're made of amino acids. Examples include enzymes, right? We're going to spend a lot of time talking about enzymes. We're even going to do a lab to show how enzymes work. They break apart and build molecules inside the body. Receptor proteins, right, on the surface of cells and other molecules. There are proteins that act as signals, right? They receive signals. They're the receptors. So they receive signals from other cells and from your body, and then they tell the cell to do things. Ligands, also known as signal molecules, right? Proteins are also the signals that the receptor molecules interact with. We also have transport proteins, right, which are proteins that help move things around your body, right? Proteins also make up parts of your skin, right, parts of your hair. So proteins are everywhere, and we will talk about many examples of them. All right, so that's the chart. Back to this PowerPoint. I will have the chart there so you can print it out. So macromolecules practice. Question 1. The soil of a rose plant is lacking nitrogen. Which one of the following would the plant have the most difficulty synthesizing? And remember, synthesizing means to make. So which one of these would the plant have a hard time making? Pause the video here to pick your answer. Think about it. Go back to your macromolecules chart. Which one has nitrogen? Do starches have nitrogen? No. So we can eliminate that. Do waxes have nitrogen? No. Right? They're a lipid. They only have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Does glucose have nitrogen? Glucose also only has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, right? It's a sugar. So 1, 2, and 3 we can eliminate. I'm putting an X on them. The correct answer is DNA, right? The plant would have a hard time making DNA. In fact, this plant would probably die because it wouldn't be able to make new cells. Question 2. A monkey's body is low in protein. He is lethargic and unable to lift heavy things. Which element is missing from his diet? So a monkey can't make protein in his body, right? This is kind of a silly example just to demonstrate this. But the monkey can't make protein. Which element is he most likely missing? Right? Technically, actually, pause here and think about it, if you didn't already. Technically, you could argue that he's missing all of these things, right? But he most likely has carbon and oxygen, because those are pretty hard to not get. Nitrogen is necessary to build a protein, right? So it could be nitrogen. And sulfur, right? Sulfur is also necessary for some proteins. So really, the correct answer here is all of them. It's a trick question. All right, last thing, analogies. Right, we're going to practice comparing words. So, amino acids are to proteins as blank are to nucleic acids. All right, so amino acids are the building blocks to a protein. So what is the building block to a nucleic acid? That's what's going to go in this blank. So the correct answer is nucleotide. Right? Nucleotides are the building blocks. Oops, I spelled it wrong. To nucleic acids, just as amino acids are the building blocks of a protein. All right, monosaccharides are to polysaccharides as fatty acids are to, So again, monosaccharides are building blocks of polysaccharides. So fatty acids are building blocks of lipids. Pretty hard stuff there. All right, hopefully you got that. Just a little bit of a different way to think about these terms and get used to using them. The last thing in this video is there is an extra credit opportunity. Woo! A lot of people have been asking, can I get extra credit for this class? Because my grade is not looking so good. Well, here is an option. So I used to have my students do this in, their class. I'm trying to move that out of the way. I'm having a Zoom meeting later. And so this is going to be an optional extra credit. Create a rap, song, poem, or story about at least one of the macromolecules to help you in your class remember. Right, so if you're creating something about a macromolecule, you're going to need to use a lot of vocabulary. The building blocks, the elements, what it's called, examples. You're going to need to use something from every column of the chart. If you just write out a rap, song, poem, or story, you can receive 10 extra credit points. If you record, you know what, I'm actually going to make that worth 20. If you record, really Zoom meeting? If you record yourself singing, saying, talking through your rap, song, poem, or story, you will receive 20 extra credit points. You can just do audio on that, or you can do a video. Email your extra credit to me, and please title it Extra Credit Biology so that I know what it is. All right, so that is an extra credit opportunity from this video. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope this helped you understand macromolecules a little better.